Post 1. I grew up in a house that called itself faithful, but it felt like a cage. The rules were not just about what we believed, they were about who we were allowed to be. Boys were praised for breathing, girls were measured like we were dolls on a shelf. I learned early that tears made things worse, that silence made time pass faster, that the safest place to look was down. I know how dramatic that sounds. I also know what a locked door sounds like from the inside. People ask why I did not leave sooner. You cannot leave what you cannot see. I went to college and met my partner, P, and something clicked that had never clicked before. I am female. P is female. We are together and we are child-free by choice. I tried to tell my mother this gently. She cried in a way that was not about me. It was about the picture she wanted to hold up at church. After a year of pressure and surveillance disguised as love, P and I moved to another state and went no contact. I finally slept through the night. Here's the part I am struggling to write without crying. There were 3 people who kept me alive before I could leave. Not alive as in oxygen and water, but alive as in a person who still thinks mornings are possible. They are the ones I kept when I cut the rest of the threads. Aunt Maeve is my mother's sister who walked away years ago. She never made a speech about it. She simply stopped showing up for rituals that hurt her. When I was little, she slipped me books and granola bars and once a silly lipstick that I hid at the back of my sock drawer like it was contraband. When she hugged me at holidays, she would whisper, "You are not wrong under the music." I believed her more than I believed my own reflection. Tasha is my best friend from high school. We shared French fries and detention and a cracked iPod earbud. She saw things in my house that no teenager should see. She let me sit in her car with the radio up until my hands stopped shaking. She said the words, "Your feelings are real," like a spell. When I left for college, she cried and said, "Do not forget me." I promised I would not. Mr. Abbott is our old neighbor. He is not religious, never was. And he did not pretend to understand the rules in our house. He just treated me like I was a person. He told my brothers to carry their own plates and told me I could cut through his yard if anyone followed me. When I was sick, he brought lemonade and asked about my favorite author like it mattered. He is retired now, and he still sends me pictures of his tomato plants and his cat. He calls me kiddo in a way that makes me feel safe rather than small. These 3 understood what I lived through. They saw it. They tried to help in the gentle ways that were possible. I kept them because I trusted them completely. I would have bet anything that none of them would ever compromise me, not for family, not for gossip, not for attention. For a year after we moved, P and I built something small and quiet. We buy groceries together, argue about whether cilantro tastes like soap, sit under the big tree by our porch while our dog hunts light on the wall. It feels ordinary. It feels like winning. Then the edges started to fray. A cousin posted a prayer request using a phrase that only I use for my research. Another post described a porch with a big tree and a nervous little dog. Someone addressed mail to a nickname my mother used to hiss when I was 14. None of this should be possible. I have not given my new address to a single person in my family. I have not posted a photo that shows our block. I keep my program details private. The only people who know anything current are the 3 above. Part of me says this could be coincidence. Part of me knows that coincidence does not copy your sentence structure. I am shaking as I type this because it feels like cutting my own heart in thirds. I do not want to suspect any of them. I would rather chew glass than look at Aunt Maeve and say you told. I would rather eat the hurt than accuse Tasha. I would rather give up holidays with Mr. Abbott than tell him I do not trust him. It feels like treason either way. People will say call the police, but here is the truth that makes me angrier than anything. Children do not get taken out of homes for religious rules, even when those rules are used like a whip. The world shrugs and calls it culture. By the time anyone cares, the child is old enough to fight, and then everyone asks why she is so angry. I am trying not to be angry. I am trying to be careful. P says we should treat this like data. She says fear makes noisy patterns. She is calm in the way that keeps my hands from going numb. I have screenshots. I have a folder with dates and posts and timestamps. I have a log of cars that slowed in front of our porch at night and a picture our neighbor texted when 2 women from my old church social group posed with gift bags under our tree. We did not go outside. We turned off the lights and waited for the footsteps to fade. I feel devastated and foolish and very young. These are not casual relationships I am guarding. These are the three who made sure I did not drown. The idea that one of them might be the leak makes my stomach lurch. The idea that none of them is the leak and I still have to cut them off to be safe is worse. Aita for even considering a plan to bait my last three trusted people with different, harmless details to see what leaks back to my family, when every part of me wants to believe they would never do this. Comment 1. I am so sorry. You are not wrong for protecting yourself. Give each of the three a unique, specific detail that cannot be guessed. Keep every detail harmless. Wait and watch. Screenshot everything. The first prayer post that matches tells you who is leaking. OP reply, that is really smart and it feels kinder than accusations. I might actually try that. I will keep the details harmless and document everything. Thank you. Update 1. I did what the top comment suggested. I kept the details harmless but unmistakable. I typed with my heart in my throat because this felt like putting dye into the water to watch where the current flows. I told myself this was kinder than accusing anyone. It still felt like I was sawing the legs off my own table. To Aunt Maeve, I sent a long, silly message about feeling burned out in my last semester and thinking about dropping out next term to strip to crush my loans. I even wrote that my stage name would be Scarlet North. My cheeks burned as I typed it, but it was harmless and specific. She sent back 3 laughing emojis, then wrote, serious voice now, that she loves me no matter what I do and that if I needed money for the last month, I should ask her first. I stared at that line for a long time because kindness makes me cry faster than cruelty. To Mr. Abbott, I sent something that sounded wild, but would not hurt anyone if it escaped. I told him a casting scout invited P and me to audition for a reality TV docuseries about unconventional couples filming here in the spring. He replied with a photo of his cat on a stack of seed catalogs and wrote, "You kids are full of surprises, and if a camera van clogs the street, you can use my driveway." He added that he did not understand what complicated rules had to do with love, and that he hoped we kept our heads down and our souls light. To Tasha, I wrote the tender thing. I told her we had decided to try IVF and that I had already had my first consult. I told her I was scared and excited in the same breath. I told her I was trusting her with this because she has seen me afraid before. I asked her not to tell anyone. She sent back a heart, then wrote that she was happy for me and that my mother believed God still works through medicine. My vision tunneled at that line. I closed my phone and put it face down on the counter and pressed my palms to the laminate to feel how real the kitchen was. 4 days later, my cousin posted a prayer request that read like a mirror held up to my private text. The tone was syrupy at the top, then sharp like a hook. It used the same phrase I used about feeling scared and excited, and then it added a line about courses of medicine that open what God closes. I felt my stomach fall. I kept thinking of our freshman year sleepovers, how Tasha and I would split a bag of sour gummies and talk about the sky like it was a secret we shared. I kept thinking of her saying your feelings are real in the front seat of her car. It is hard to accept that someone can hold your hand and also hand you over. The next evening, our neighbor messaged a grainy photo from his window. 2 women in church skirts were on our porch with a gift bag between them. The photo was tilted because he was trying not to be obvious. The bag was pink with a ruffle of tissue peeking out. He wrote, "Not my business, but 2 ladies posed under your tree and took a selfie with your steps." I did not answer right away. I could hear my pulse in my ears. P squeezed my fingers and said we are not opening the door. We watched from the dark hallway as the women took a second selfie, laughing, then set the bag in the center of the top step like an offering. When they left, we waited for the street to go quiet. P went out and brought the bag inside, then locked the door and slid the chain like we were sealing a vault. Inside were a knit blanket, a newborn onesie with tiny ducks, and a ceramic mug that said "World's Best Grandma." There was a card, unsigned, with the words "Welcome Home" written in careful curls. I do not know how to explain the feeling of holding a baby blanket when your body is not pregnant and your autonomy has been treated like a debate club topic your whole life. I sat on the rug and folded the blanket and unfolded it and folded it again because my hands needed something to do that was not shaking. P put the mug on the counter and said we were going to make tea and take photographs of everything and put it all in the folder. She spoke like a nurse in a trauma bay, calm and specific. I love her for that. I hate that she has learned to be that for me. I did not write to Tasha, not because I was trying to be clever, but because I could not trust my voice not to break into 1,000 jagged pieces. I removed her from every platform and archived our messages in a folder that I named for the month so I would not have to see her name in my files. I told two mutuals that there had been a serious boundary violation, that I would not be attending anything where Tasha might be present, and that I would not be explaining further. I sent Aunt Maeve the short version. She replied immediately with, "I am so sorry, protect your peace. I am here." Mr. Abbott texted to ask if we wanted him out on the porch with a book for the next few evenings as a light deterrent. We said yes. He wrote that he would bring the cat if the cat agreed to the terms. I keep toggling between numb and flooded. Part of me keeps whispering that I should pick up the phone and give Tasha the benefit of the doubt, that maybe she told just one person who told one person. Another part of me points at the blanket and the mug and the fact that someone used my mother's old lecture phrasing in a public prayer post and says, "How many doors do you need to see before you call it a hallway?" I am not sure which part is more exhausted. I know there will be people who say confrontation brings closure. Confrontation in my childhood did not bring closure. It brought the next hour of punishment and the next week of cold shoulders. I am trying not to script my present with the language of my past, but I also refuse to rehearse with someone who has already sold tickets to the show. Right now, my plan is quiet. Document, tighten, shrink my circle to the size of what my nervous system can hold. I keep thinking of the three people I chose to keep when I left. Aunt Maeve and Mr. Abbott still feel like oxygen. Tasha feels like a door I have to close before the house fills with smoke. Writing that sentence makes me cry again. AETA for freezing out my former best friend without confronting her. After our test confirmed she leaked the IVF story and relatives arrived at my home with baby gifts. Comment 1. Not the jerk. You ran a careful, humane test and the response crossed into your home. Keep documenting, get a P.O. box, and consider a brief lawyer letter if any more third parties show up. You do not owe anyone a dramatic conversation. Comment 2. You are protecting yourself. Quiet distance is a boundary, not cruelty. Loop in your department if any emails appear. Keep Aunt Maeve and Mr. Abbott, and keep your peace. Update 2. Since I posted last, the tone from my extended family changed from mournful to purposeful. It started with 3 messages in an hour from 3 different cousins. The phrases were painfully familiar. I was told I am robbing my mother of her future. I was told I am punishing everyone for mistakes I should forgive. One cousin sent a link to a sermon about cheerful surrender. I turned the phone face down and pressed my palms flat on the counter just to feel something solid. Then an email hit my department. Subject line, student conduct concern. It was sent to my program chair and the general graduate accounts. It used my full name. It accused me of living in open defiance and suggested I needed correction before graduation. Whole phrases were lifted from a lecture series my mother played in our living room when I was 14. My chair forwarded it with a short note. The message had been logged. It would not affect my standing. She asked if I felt safe and offered a campus patrol. I sent her screenshots of the porch gifts and the prayer posts and asked that everything stay in the file. I said no to a patrol. A marked car outside would only make us more obvious. I called Aunt Maeve. She rarely calls me first because she knows ringing phones spike my heart rate. She said she was proud of me for staying calm and said the sentence that keeps me upright. Love is not the same thing as access. I cried without making a sound because that is an old habit, then said thank you until it felt like a prayer of my own. I thought the worst part was the email. It was not. A mutual from high school, the type who sends a birthday emoji and nothing else, messaged me a photo with no words. Tasha and my brother stood on courthouse steps. Simple clothes, a small ring on her hand. The caption under it on their page said, "Sometimes the family you need is the one that says yes to you first." I sat on the bathroom floor and watched myself breathe in the mirror. The porch gifts, the prayer posts, the phrasing in that email. All of it tilted into alignment I did not want to see. Tasha did not just drift closer to my family, she joined it. My first reaction was rage covered in grief. My second reaction was a plan. It is my final semester. I graduate in 4 weeks. Last week, I accepted an offer for a job in another city. The work is good. The team seems kind in the unshowy way that means they do not ask for your blood to prove your dedication. P and I sat at the kitchen table with 2 notebooks. On one page, we wrote logistics for a quiet move. On the other, we wrote a slow drip of fiction to feed the one person who carried the IVF story to my mother. I sent Tasha a message that my consult went well, that I felt scared and excited, that our next appointment would be in 2 Thursdays. She replied with a heart and the sentence, "Your mom says God works through medicine." There was the confirmation I never wanted. 3 days later, I told her we were thinking of moving to a coastal boardwalk city so the baby could be near the water. I named a town that is pretty and crowded and famous for saying no to strangers at leasing offices. I asked her not to tell anyone because I did not want to jinx it. She sent confetti and texting punctuation that looked like clapping. In real life, we rented a P.O. box in the city where my job is. We scheduled mail forwarding for 2 days after graduation rather than the day of. Utilities will shut off with the same offset. Movers are reserved under P's mother's last name, so nothing pings old memories. We asked Mr. Abbott if he would call us if unfamiliar cars sat outside at night. He wrote back that he had a good mystery novel and a thermos and did not mind being nosy for a cause. We made a short list of people who get the real city and a request to be careful when speaking out loud. It is a small circle. It is supposed to be. I want to say plainly that your comments made this plan possible. If I had not posted here, I would have swallowed my fear and met Tasha for coffee for the sake of history, and I would have explained my life to the person who handed it over for approval and a seat at a dinner table. I hate that this is the truth. I am grateful I can see it. The pile-on has not stopped. A cousin posted a new prayer about a loved one drawn toward the water. The photo was of a beach from a stock image site, but the caption used my wording about feeling light and scared. The department has received nothing further. The porch has stayed quiet for 3 nights. I still jump at small sounds, but the folder on my laptop is a kind of armor now. I am not asking another AETA question here because I do not feel torn. I am sad, but I am steady. I am doing what people do when they want a life. I am telling the truth to the people who protect me. I am feeding polite fiction to the person who sold my fear for points. I am moving toward work I am proud of and mornings that do not begin with surveillance disguised as love. Comment 1. You are handling this with precision and compassion. The department log protects you. The P.O. box protects you. The staggered utilities protect you. Keep your slow drip small and time-bound. You owe no direct confrontation to someone who used your private health hopes as content. Comment 2. I know this is unpopular, but maybe the family just misses you. Sharing a moving city is not the same as danger. A baby can heal old wounds if you let it. OP reply, I understand why that sounds reasonable from far away. From up close, we have an anonymous email to my department, uninvited porch visits, and a pattern of using my words against me. That is not missing me. That is control. I am not pregnant. I am not moving to the boardwalk city. I am choosing safety and peace. Update 3. Graduation is 20 days away. Our plan has been to keep the drip small, stay very quiet, and move fast after ceremonies. I thought if we stayed boring, the fire would run out of oxygen. Instead, the air felt thicker this week. The first sign was a car that rolled to a crawl outside our place at 9:13 p.m. and sat idling for 2 minutes. Mr. Abbott texted first. He wrote, gray sedan, out-of-state plate, driver on a phone. Then he sent a second text after the car moved on. He wrote, I am on the porch with my book for the next hour. The next day, I found a folded tract on our steps with a note on the back in block letters. It read, Your mother loves you. Come home. The handwriting was unfamiliar. I took photos, sealed the tract in a zip bag, and put it in the folder with the porch gifts and the screenshots. P said, we document, we do not give them the scene. I nodded and still had to sit down because my legs went wobbly in the doorway, like I had been running when I had only been picking up the mail. That evening, a message popped up from Tasha. I had not blocked her number because I wanted a record if she contacted me again. The text opened with a photo of a cake. The cake was decorated with pastel booties and the words, Little Blessings. She wrote, This is not what you think it is. It is a welcome cake for the new Sunday school class. Then she wrote 2 paragraphs about how she missed me and how fragile hope can be, and how she could help everyone soften if I would just talk to my mother. The lines fell into the shapes I know by heart. The message ended with, It is not too late to do what is right. The muscles along my shoulders went tight like cables. I put down the phone and walked to the sink and turned the water on and off just to hear something that obeyed me. P stood beside me and told me to breathe into her hands. I cried in the quiet way my body learned to cry when I was small. the way that leaves your throat raw and your cheeks dry. When I could talk again, I said, I do not want to reply. P said, you do not have to say a single word to anyone who uses your fear as currency. We sent the letter the next morning. It was short, folded into one page, and reviewed by a lawyer through a student legal aid clinic that helps with harassment cases. It said that Tasha is not to share any personal information about me or P, that she is not to contact my department, landlords, or employers, and that any third-party contact triggered by her messages would be treated as harassment. It listed the porch gifts, the drive-bys, the tract, and the email to the department. It did not ask for a conversation. It drew a line. 3 hours after the letter went out, my brother sent me a message on a platform I barely use. He wrote, "You made my wife cry." That was the moment I realized I had been right to keep my hands off the keyboard before. I closed the app and had a glass of water, and then I wrote a 4-sentence reply. I wrote that all communication must be in writing. I wrote that sharing my private information had already resulted in third-party contact at my home and at my school. I wrote that any further contact would be documented. I wrote that I wished them peace. He replied with the word home in capital letters and then a string of messages that slid into old patterns I know too well. I closed the app again and moved those messages into the folder with everything else. That afternoon, 2 men stood on the sidewalk across from our place and pointed up at the tree. They stood there for a long minute like they expected it to deliver me. Mr. Abbott coughed loudly from his porch and stared at them over the top of his book. They left when a delivery truck needed the curb. P stood at the window with her arms crossed and counted breaths. I do not think I have ever loved anyone more than I loved her in that exact moment, just for being still beside me. I wish this update were neat. It is not. It is a collage of hard edges and small acts of care. Aunt Maeve sent an overnight box that contained a note and a citrus loaf and a tiny notebook with a sticker on the cover that said evidence. Her note said, I know this is not a joke, but if we do not allow delight to touch the edge of a bad day, the bad day wins everything. Mr. Abbott put a sticky note on our door that said he had charged his bicycle lights and would be doing extra loops around the block. He drew a smiley face with a crooked mouth that looked like it was in on the plan. Here is the boundary in plain words. I will not meet Tasha. I will not meet my brother. I will not open my door to anyone who arrives without an invitation. If a car idles outside, I will log the plate and the time. If any emails land in a school inbox, I will forward them to my chair and add them to the file. Our lease ends 30 hours after graduation ceremonies. 10 hours after that, a locksmith will change the deadbolt at the new place. 2 days later, a friend will return our keys to management. None of these details will be posted online. They will exist in paperwork and in the folder that sits like a brick on my desktop. I keep hearing my mother's voice, soft and cutting at once. You do not have to make this so hard. I used to think that meant there was an easier way back. Now, I think it means I was the one doing the hard work she did not want to see. It is not my job to make my life easy for anyone else to swallow. Thank you to everyone here who helped me put language around what I am doing. I feel sad. I feel steady. Both are true at once. Comment 1. You held the line beautifully. The letter was necessary. Document every plate, every doorstep item, every message. Keep speaking to your department only in writing. Your plan around the lease and locksmith is solid. You do not owe them a performance. Comment 2. Mr. Abbott is a treasure. Please keep him and Aunt Maeve close. When you leave, take a different route than you usually drive and consider a night at a hotel in between. You are doing the brave thing with care. Update 4. There were 2 more drive-bys. One was the gray sedan again. The other was a minivan with a church bumper sticker from my old town. They did not stop. They passed slowly, as if a long stare could force the door to open. I logged the plates and the times in the little notebook Aunt Maeve sent and took photos from inside through the screen. The act of cataloging has become a kind of spine. I put dates on the page and the fear stands up less heavy. 14 days to graduation, we tested our decoy city plan. I sent Tasha a very simple message. We chose Cedar Ridge. There's an apartment near the boardwalk with a blue door that I think you would love. I wrote that I was scared and light at the same time, and that a due date in my head made me cry at odd moments. She replied with heart emojis and the line, "Families heal around babies." Within 24 hours, a cousin posted a prayer request that mentioned a loved one drawn toward the water and a blue door that is always open. It was almost poetic. It was also confirmation that our dye in the water was flowing exactly where we expected. In real life, our new apartment has a slate door and a small balcony that looks at nothing interesting. It is perfect. I sent the address only to the tiny circle. The utilities are set up in P's name with her mother's maiden name on the file. Our old accounts will close 2 days after graduation. We staggered the movers, first on paper for the decoy date, then in practice for the real one. The old landlord believes we are leaving 3 days later than we will, which gives us a cushion of hours that feel like a blanket around our shoulders. 3 days before graduation, a wellness check was requested at our address. The officer was polite and direct. He said a family member had called to say I was not answering my mother. I told him I was fine, that we are no contact for safety, and that any further checks were to be logged but not performed unless there is a clear legal reason. I showed him the folder and the letter. He read quietly and nodded. He said he would note the file. When he left, I cried into P's hands again. All that old feeling of a door opening without your permission trying to drag me back? P brewed tea in the world's best grandma mug and handed it to me with the handle turned, not as a joke, just as a reminder that we get to choose what an object means. Graduation day came like a bright bell. I wore a simple dress. P wore a navy suit that made her look like the future. I scanned the crowd and felt my eyes catch on shapes that looked like relatives, and then did not resolve into anyone I knew. I walked across the stage and did not cry until after, when the mortarboard was in my lap and my phone buzzed with messages from people who truly love me. Aunt Maeve sent a photo of a cake with the words, "You did it," in large letters. Mr. Abbott sent a selfie with his cat and the tomato starts, both of them looking like they had witnessed a good day. That night, a new prayer post appeared. It said, "We will meet you at the blue door." The photo was a stock image of a coastal cottage with shutters. The caption used one of my phrases from high school that I had only ever said to Tasha. That was the last piece I needed to stop doubting my own eyes. P and I looked at each other, and then we started moving in a calm hurry. The decoy run happened first. We asked a friend to sit on our porch with a novel the next afternoon, while a small moving truck with the decoy company name loaded a few boxes of thrift store furniture we had bought cheaply for this purpose. The truck pulled away at 2 p.m. exactly. 10 minutes later, a silver car rolled by, slow. A passenger took a photo. I watched from the window of a neighbor's second floor because I had already dropped off a thank you letter and a box of cookies. Control is not the word for what I felt. Focus is closer. The scene played out like a script we had rehearsed. At dawn the following day, the real movers came. They wore plain shirts and called me by P's last name on the paperwork. We loaded the rest in 2 hours. Mr. Abbott stood at the curb with coffee in a travel mug and made 3 jokes that were not very good, which made me love them more. He said he would miss our dog chasing light. He gave me a card and said I could open it later. We hugged and did not make promises that required us to be anyone other than who we are. We drove a different route out of the city than we use for errands. We stopped for gas once and ate apples in a parking lot like children pretending to be spies. At noon, we were at the new place. The door was slate. The balcony looked at nothing interesting. The locksmith arrived at 2 and changed the deadbolt. My body did not believe we were safe until I heard the click of a key I had just created. At 4, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I did not recognize. It said, "You are cruel." I blocked it without reading the rest. At 5, our friend returned our old keys to management with a short thank you card. At 7, I opened Mr. Abbott's card. Inside was a photograph of his tomato plants and a sentence in careful printing. It said, "I see you choosing your life, kiddo. Proud of you. I do not have a moral to this update. I have a lock. I have a folder. I have a room where no one knows the paint color yet. I have P sleeping on the carpet with the dog lying across her shins while we wait for the bed to arrive. I have a sense that the air can be simple again." Comment 1. You executed the plan with care and precision. The wellness check response was perfect. Keep your new address within the small circle and consider a Google alert on your name for a while. Mr. Abbott and Aunt Maeve are the definition of chosen family. Comment 2. Congratulations on graduating and on leaving safely. The decoy run was smart. Change your numbers when you can and update your voter registration after the dust settles. May your slate door stay boring forever. Final update, 9 months later. I thought the first morning in the new apartment would feel like the end of a chase. Instead, it felt like the beginning of a rhythm. We learned the sound our hallway makes when the neighbor's kid runs to catch the elevator. We learned the time the sun falls across the carpet in winter and the way it lifts off in spring like a curtain. We learned that the coffee shop 2 blocks away burns the croissants on Tuesdays, but not on Thursdays. The small shape of our life returned, and I did not know I had been holding my shoulders to my ears until they slowly climbed down my body where they belong. No one showed up, no cars idled, no tracks, no prayer posts that looked like GPS coordinates. There were 2 emails that tried to feel like a net. One went to my work address from an account with a dozen numbers in the name that used phrases I could recite from childhood. I forwarded it to HR and did not reply. The second was sent to the contact form on a social page I keep for professional updates. I removed the form entirely and replaced it with a simple email address that goes to a folder I check once a week. No one found the address because no one who matters would send me a message they would be ashamed to sign. I have not heard from my brother since the day he wrote in capital letters. A mutual told another mutual, who told a third person, who told me, months later, that he and Tasha had a small ceremony at a family property and that she is teaching a class at the same church where we used to babysit together. I have thought a lot about the version of us that might have sat on a curb at 17 and guessed our futures. I would not have guessed this. People reach for the hand that looks like it will catch them. I am sorry she chose a hand that closes into a fist if you do not squeeze back the right way. I am also done writing her into my mornings. Aunt May visited in early summer and stayed for a weekend. We ate noodles and walked along a path that circles nothing special, which is somehow the most special thing. She brought me a tiny framed print that says, "Love is not access," in her own handwriting. It sits by the door where a cross might sit in someone else's house. We hugged at the elevator, and she said, "You did something I could not do for a long time." I said, "You handed me the first book." We both cried and laughed like it was one sound. Mr. Abbott sent a holiday card with a photograph of his tomato plants lined up like a parade, and a second small photo of his cat sitting where our dog used to sit, staring at the patch of floor where the light comes in. He wrote, "Cat still hunts light in your honor. Porch is quiet. Be well, kiddo." I put the card on our fridge, and every time I see it, I feel a line run from our new city to that old porch. It is not a tether. It is a thread of care. P and I settled into our jobs. My team is the kind that brings extra pens to meetings and notices when you take a breath. I am learning how to be the version of myself who does not clamp her jaw every time a calendar notification pings. P found a unit that values her steadiness. We adopted a second dog because our first needed a friend. They patrol the balcony to make sure the pigeons understand the terms of the lease. I know some people want a decisive end with declarations and a door slammed on cue. My end is not a slam. It is a door that closes on a soft latch and then stays closed because the hinges are new. There is no MC who announces the lesson. There is quiet. There are groceries. There are text chains where my name is spelled right. There is a dentist appointment I made on time. There is a mug on my counter that once made my vision tunnel. Now we use it when we are out of clean cups, and we laugh about it because there is nothing in me that flinches at the sight of it anymore. Objects only hold the power you keep feeding them. I do not know if my family tells a version of the story where I am the one who burned the bridge and set the river on fire. I do not care. The older I get, the more I understand that other people's narrators will never belong to me. Mine belongs to me. Mine sounds like a woman who gets up in the morning and makes coffee and takes 2 dogs outside and comes back in and kisses the person she chose. Mine sounds like someone who can hear a footstep outside and know it is just a neighbor going about a normal day. The big tree in my memory is still there, of course. Trees do not vanish because you drove away. But in my head, the branches do not lean over a porch with strangers under them anymore. They are just branches. Light still makes strange shapes. The dog still hunts them. The day still lifts like a curtain and then tucks itself in at night. I still get emails. Most of them are regular and polite and include meetings that start on time. Sometimes I open the folder with the screenshots and the tract and the letter, and I feel the weight of it. Then I close it again and go make dinner. That is closure for me. Not a speech, not a scene. Just the knowledge that the door is mine, the key is mine, and the life on the other side belongs to the person who walks through it every day on purpose. Every day on purpose. Every day on purpose.